Welcome to today's video where I'm going to be showing you some easy testing to determine what's wrong with your backup sensors on your Ram 1500. So I'm having some issues with the reverse sensors on my Ram 1500. It's an intermittent issue. So every once in a while when I throw the vehicle in reverse, these sensors work fine. But other times when I throw it in reverse, I get an error code here. So what we're going to do is plug in the Launch 919X and we're going to run a test and determine what sensor is causing the issue. And I'll teach you how to identify what sensor is in what order. So we run our health report here and we're showing two codes here for the Parktronics. So it looks like both codes are for sensor number 9, a short to battery and an in-op. So we're going to pull up what these two codes are and what some possible issues would be and some possible fixes for both of these. So the first code we had here was the 1296-12. So let's go to that one and we'll see that's the short to battery. So taking a look here, it's giving us a wiring diagram. So the sensor is a 3-wire supply, ground, and a signal. So it comes direct from the module to the sensor here. It's going to show us the 3 different connectors. So the sensor, the wiring harness, and then the module. It's going to give us a little bit of info here on the sensors, which I'll show you how to actually identify what sensor is sensor number 9. Possible causes here. And then some of our testing. So it looks like we'll need a voltmeter to do some testing on the sensors as well as the module here. All right, let's go back here. And the second one we had here was the in-off, which is 1296.92. So this one is more than likely become present because of the actual issue, because the sensor isn't functioning correctly. But again, it's going to show us here the wiring diagram for that sensor in the module. It gives us a little bit of the same info here. So same thing here, we're going to need a voltmeter to do some testing. So before we actually jump in, pull the module out of the headliner and start doing some testing, I'm going to explain to you how to determine what sensor is sensor number 9, and I'm going to show you one easy test that you can try, because both of these codes say that the possibility is either the module or possibly the sensor. So I'll show you how to test the sensor first before we go the route of using the voltmeter. So when it comes to determining location of the sensors, if we look here, it gives you a brief description of how to actually determine your sensor location. But the easiest way to understand it is the RAM will have 6 sensors in the front if they're equipped and 4 sensors in the rear. So when you're looking at the vehicle, the very first sensor, sensor number 1, will be the driver's side sensor. And then it's going to count down from 1 to 6, ending 6 at the front corner of the passenger side. When you go to the rear of the vehicle, it actually skips sensor number 7 and it starts at 8. So sensor 8 would be the rear passenger, and that's going to go in the rotation of 8, 9, 10, and 11. You're going to skip sensor 12. So there's no sensor 7 or 12. So your sensor 11 will be the rear driver's side. So our sensor number 9 will be the second in on the rear of the passenger side. Okay, so like I mentioned, when we're looking at the rear passenger, this will be sensor number 8. This sensor is sensor number 9. So now that we know sensor number 9 is our second one in, that's this sensor right here. So what we're going to do before we pull out our voltmeter is we're going to do a really simple test. We're actually going to move sensor number 9 to sensor number 8, which is the sensor here in the corner. And if this code transfers from sensor 9 to sensor 8, we know that that's where our problem lies. If the code doesn't transfer, what we're going to do at that point is then disconnect the sensor again, and we're going to start checking for short to ground, short to power. We're going to check the ohms. We're going to try to avoid to disconnect the module because we have to remove the headliner to get to that module. So we're going to take the least path of resistance before we start pulling apart that headliner to test the module. So like I said, what we're going to do is disconnect this sensor first. So we have the 1 tab here. We're going to push in. We're going to disconnect sensor number 9. We're going to disconnect sensor number 8, and then we're going to remove and swap the 2 sensors around and then rescan the vehicle here. So to get this sensor out now, we need to push down and up on the 2 tabs here. So this may be a little tricky to get both out. So you can use a knife or a small pick to help you get the second one out. And that's how you remove the sensor. There's the 2 clips here that clip in here and here. So let's switch out sensor number 8. That one will be a little hard to see here because it's tucked into the corner, but I'm going to pop it out and then we're going to move these 2 sensors around. So what I've done to make my testing easier is I actually disconnected both sensors and removed them both. We're just going to move the sensor 8 into 9 now. And this is the sensor 9 here. We're going to tuck that into the sensor 8 harness connection. And we're going to rescan the vehicle and see what happens. So in the Partronics, we now have 4 issues, and we can see that the sensor issues for number 9 are stored because they're no longer active, and now we have issues on sensor number 8. So looking at that, that's determining that the problem here is the sensor. So we don't need to move any further with doing any additional testing for the wiring or the module here. We're going to get the replacement sensor, swap that in, and then we're going to see if the Partronics now works. So now that we have our bad sensor out here, we can see there is some product numbers here on it, Chrysler branding, as well as Bosch branding. So when you're looking at the replacement sensor for this, you have 2 kind of options here. So the sensor directly from the Mopar dealer is about $250 to $300, but the sensor is actually made from Bosch. So an alternative option is actually getting just the Bosch replacement sensor here. The product codes for these 2 sensors is going to be different, but they're both made here directly from Bosch, other than this new one doesn't have the Chrysler logoing on the sensor. So now that we have our new sensor in the location of sensor 8, we're going to reinsert that back into its housing. We're also going to reinsert sensor number 9. And we're now going to test the Partronic system. Okay, so to test the Partronic system, now we're going to throw the vehicle in reverse here, and we're going to see if it will illuminate on both sides here, which we do. I do have some stuff behind me, so that's why I'm showing that it's in my proximity here. We're no longer getting the error code. So So that's a really quick and easy way to figure out what the issue is here with your Parktronics, if it's just one sensor or if it's a couple sensors. The reason that I went the route of just switching the two sensors is because I was only showing an issue with one of these sensors and not multiple, as well as I did need to disconnect the sensors to start testing the wiring with our voltmeter. So the way that I'm looking at it as is, if I have to remove that sensor anyways off of the harness, I might as well just take the second, switch the two sensors around, and rescan the vehicle. Now, if we had swapped that sensor and it still stayed in the same location, that would let us know that the issue is not actually in the sensor, and now we have to start looking at the wiring to that sensor or the module for that sensor. If you have any questions about this process, leave me a comment, like, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.